Girls' Last Tour, or Shoujo Shumatsu Ryoku, is this season's adaptation of the web manga of the same name by White Fox, the same guys behind Steins Gate and ReZero. And from the onset, it looks like a show about cute girls doing cute things, and for all it's worth, it almost does derive into a moe blob slice of life. But there's a lot more to the show than just this absurd slice of life. After all, they are in a wasteland, the end of the world. There's a great deal of mystery surrounding the world and its inhabitants, and in the midst of apocalypse are these two girls just roaming about. That diversion is a great way to draw me in, and that's what I want to talk about. Girls' Last Tour juxtaposes two extremes in a way that allows us to see that the world is beautiful amidst all of its ruin. And this is an idea that I find prevalent in a show like Kino's, and I'm totally not doing an episode about Girls' Last Tour to make this connection and promote the weekly Kino series that I'm doing. In Kino's, it's the sheer absence of any obvious beauty and morality that makes the world so beautiful in retrospect. It's about being able to see through all of the dirt and conceive in your hand a beautiful shiny ball of mud. And although the world of Kino isn't as decrepit as Girls' Last Tour, considering, there are people, it still holds true to the show. No matter how dingy, destroyed, degenerate the world is now, there's beauty to be found. One way the show showcases the beauty is quite literally through the beauty of the world, its landscape. There's no better way to be breathtaking than by taking in your surroundings, and being amazed by our natural world is human. It's no question that there would be an entire subreddit filled with like-minded people, and why our techniques for capturing the world through a vlog, a camera, or just a picture has been shifted to such an aesthetic generation. We love things that look good, that show our world to be a beautiful place. And to have Girls' Last Tour be set in a slice of life apocalypse allows us to have these moments of catharsis with the characters. This isn't a very action-packed show where we might miss these moments of beauty. Instead, we can have them right in the middle of a ruined civilization. And I find it no surprise that these girls, who must have been living in this world for quite some years now, find this simple night sky so mesmerizing. They've been traveling for quite some time now, probably amassing a fortune in ruins, but for this one transient moment, they are captured by nature. It's a clear visual transition for us as they move from these dingy ruins to this beautiful night sky. But to them, it's a moment of remembering that they are living in this world. That despite where they are and what has happened to the world, that nature moves on and time moves forward. So they stop and admire this starry night sky, reminiscing about where they are in place of the world. It's beautiful, and they know they're living. It gives them an opportunity to let all of the raw around them sift away in the sights. They're allowed to just be girls again in that moment, and that's a really amazing feeling to cherish in this ruined world. But there's almost this obsession with transition that makes up many of the landscape beauties in Girls' Last Tour so far. We have the transition from the darkened top floor to the streetlights that give us this cascade of beauty that our cast gawks at. The transition of being in this darkened church, then being greeted by this huge tower of light. The transition of them in an abandoned apartment and imagining it filled with life, and of course, light. Light becomes a recurring feature in many of the beauties that we see, and adds another clear juxtaposition to the midst of Girls' Last Tour. Here I think it's a little more ham-handed. The dark is the ruins of the world, the decrepit half, the destroyed humanity. It's this dark that we are shown most of the world. We weave through these abandoned and rundown buildings and see the dredges of life. It's actually quite depressing if you're in this position of just rolling on without purpose and constantly being reminded of the state of the world. You might be inclined to believe that there is no beauty left. In an extreme situation of apocalypse, it's very hard to see these moments at all, Look at something like The Road or Cabaneri, and everything is just sad and destroyed and you have no time. But in this show of extremes, we are juxtaposing the apocalypse with cute girls. And the show does a great subtle job for us to make that other side shine through, showing us these moments of beauty through light. Thus, the light becomes the beauty of the world, the other extreme to juxtapose the dark, and is also the side of the world we most often associate with slice of life cute girls doing cute things. In this way, White Fox can use this tonal shift in visual composition and the color palette to directly relate to the main juxtaposition of genres, and this really works for me. Light and dark, night and day, are after all natural occurrences, and are not foreign concepts to being human, so to extend that, why not depression and ruins, with beauty and catharsis? It's a brilliant way to showcase these moments of levity, while also bringing the world out to be like the real. But do these moments have to be of the landscape, and of the physical world to be beautiful? There's also beauty in the mind. And another main point that I find Girls Last Tour doing really well are these small snippets of humanity that they showcase, one of which is Chito's collection of books. In reality, being in a wasteland is quite boring. Most of their day is just traveling, and when they finally do have time to rest, they have to worry about keeping the fire up, rationing, and then, well, that's about it. They don't have anything to do, and they can't afford to do much lest they lose their way or use up extra resources. It's hard to find a hobby in an apocalypse, since your number one priority is to make sure you're alive and well. But this is a slice of life show. Let's not forget that. This isn't, Cabaneri or Attack on Titan, where we have to keep to that apocalyptic grit. So once again, the genre lends itself to allow for moments of rest, and then we are given these character moments. Chito's books become for me a defining point of her character, and shows one side of beauty that remains. She makes a good point to say, it's a very interesting line to look at when you're in an era without civilization. You write to record and pass down that knowledge. But what if there is no one to pass that knowledge down to? That's a sad thought, but either way, someone needs to record their memories. After all, they fade. Chito, this lover of books, takes that job, and perhaps she does so to pass the time. Or maybe she genuinely loves writing in her journal as a way of catharsis. But in this lawless world where everything is gloomy and distraught, is this seemingly inane action. And for me, this showcases the beauty still left in the world through her curiosity and her own learning. It's an oddity in a war-torn society to pick up non-essentials, which is why someone like Yuri can't read or write. But for Chito, she relishes that. Her books and writing ties her to the intellectual side of humans, to the side that respects thinking more than just survival. And there's beauty found in stories and books, and I find it interesting that the book Yuri takes is from Akutagawa, a Japanese writer, and so we know that she doesn't just carry biographies, but actual stories. Another moment of beauty, or moments, is from the camera. Again, having a camera is basically the same as writing down notes. It's non-essential in survival, but Hanazawa thrived on his pictures, and we get this segment where Yuri and Chito become almost obsessed with this machine. But there's a stark difference, I feel, in the picture and writing. You can always describe to the best of your ability the world they lived in, but Yuri takes pictures, and within those pictures is a direct copy, almost holding another version of it in her hands. And she makes a really good point here. No matter what happens, if the camera survives, those moments and those memories will survive. The city will survive as long as those pictures persist. Cameras capture transient moments in time, and you can hold those moments and relive them at your leisure. I find that concept really quite beautiful. We take pictures because we want to hold those memories and to share those scenes and moments with others. Chito and Yuri doesn't have any obvious contender for sharing, but they do so anyway, just like Chito, who writes in her diary to hold their memories. It's something they find necessary to do, to make their mark and prove that they've lived. In a world so decrepit that you might as well die, these two are clinging to life, and are making their way to wherever they may end up. This endearment is so human in such an inhuman world that I can't help but find it beautiful despite it being so visceral and raw. Even more so when Chito takes a picture of the both of them to capture them in the moment when Yuri makes the point is just such a telling character moment for her. Pitching a cute slice of life genre with the gritty apocalypse surprisingly works. In juxtaposing these two extremes, we are able to see just how beautiful the world really is in Girls Last Tour. And that concept of beauty is exactly how it is in the real world. There's beauty all around us, within the scenery that we don't pay enough attention to, in the details, and in our mind. We can find beauty all around us past the hardships we may have. All it takes is a moment's respite to find them, and when we do, it's amazing. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. If you liked this video, maybe check out the other stuff that I'm doing featuring Kinos, but I am going to do other shows. I have Kekai Sensen on the chopping board and perhaps maybe Just Because. But anyways, I'm Brian, signing out.